After 20 long years, 10 in war, 10 in wandering, Odysseus finally returned to Ithaca. But he did not return like a hero. No banners, no celebrations, no one running to the shore. He came quietly, as a stranger in his own land. Athena, goddess of wisdom, met him in secret. She warned him of what had happened while he was gone. In his palace, men had moved in like wolves, suitors, dozens of them, eating his food, drinking his wine, mocking his household, and demanding that Penelope choose one of them as her husband. They thought Odysseus was dead, and they were already dividing his kingdom. So Athena gave Odysseus a new face. With a touch of divine power, she hid his strength, aged his features, and dressed him in rags. Odysseus, king of Ithaca, walked toward his own home disguised as a beggar. He did not go to the palace first. He went to the hut of Eumaeus, his loyal swineherd, a humble man with an honest heart. Eumaeus did not recognize him, but he fed him. He gave him warmth. He spoke of the pain of Ithaca, of a queen who still waited, and a young prince surrounded by enemies. Odysseus listened and tested the loyalty of the man who had remained faithful when almost everyone else had surrendered to fear or greed. That night, as rain fell outside the hut, another traveler arrived. Telemachus, no longer a child. He had grown into a young man, hardened by danger, searching for news of his father. Eumaeus welcomed him, and when the moment came, Athena lifted the disguise, just enough. Odysseus stood before his son. Telemachus stared, unable to breathe, unable to believe. Then the truth struck like lightning. Father and son embraced. After 20 years apart, they held each other, not as legend, not as myth, but as family. And together they formed a plan. Not an army, not a grand battle, a quiet return, a trap, a reckoning. Odysseus went to the palace still disguised, moving through his own halls like a shadow. The suitors laughed at him. They kicked him, insulted him, threw scraps at his feet. Only one person in the palace came close enough to touch him. His old nurse, Eurycleia, was ordered to wash the beggar's feet, and as her hands moved through the water, her fingers found a scar. A scar Odysseus had carried since boyhood. Eurycleia froze. Her breath caught. She knew him. Odysseus gently stopped her, and with one urgent look, begged her to stay silent. And Penelope, wise, cautious Penelope, watched silently. She did not recognize him, but something in her eyes never fully accepted that he was truly gone. Odysseus learned the truth. The suitors were not just waiting. They were plotting. They had decided to kill Telemachus, to erase Odysseus's bloodline, to take Ithaca completely. The palace was a cage, and time was running out. Then Penelope announced a challenge, a final contest. She brought out Odysseus's great bow, a weapon no other man could easily draw. And she declared, "Whoever can string this bow and shoot an arrow clean through 12 axe heads will be my husband." The suitors cheered. They lined up one by one. Strong men, proud men, men who thought power meant victory. But the bow did not bend for them. They strained, sweated, failed. One after another, they gave up in frustration. Then, quietly, the beggar stepped forward. Laughter exploded across the hall. A beggar? Holding the king's bow? But Telemachus stood firm. Eumaeus brought the bow, and Odysseus took it in his hands. The room fell strangely still. He examined it, as if greeting an old friend. Then he pulled the string back, smoothly, easily, like it had been waiting for him. The suitors froze. Odysseus raised the bow. The arrow flew, straight through all 12 axe heads. Perfect. And then he stood tall. He turned to the suitors, his eyes no longer tired, no longer broken, and he spoke the words that ended their world. You dogs. You thought I would never return. The first arrow struck a suitor in the throat. Chaos erupted. Doors slammed shut. Telemachus armed himself. Faithful servants rushed to their king, and Odysseus, the man of many wiles, became the storm inside his own house. The suitors fought, but they were trapped. They begged, they pleaded, they tried to bargain, but there was no bargain left. One by one, the invaders fell, paying in blood for years of arrogance and cruelty. When it was done, the great hall was silent again, the palace cleansed, but not yet healed, because the hardest moment was still ahead. Penelope came down at last. She stood at a distance, studying the man before her, a man who claimed to be Odysseus, a man who looked like him, a man who moved like him. But Penelope had survived too much to trust quickly, so she tested him. She turned to a servant and said, "Prepare the marriage bed for him. Move it into the hall." Odysseus's face changed instantly. "Move it," he said. "Impossible." And the room held its breath. "Because that bed," Odysseus whispered, "was built from the trunk of a living olive tree. I carved it with my own hands. It cannot be moved, unless someone cut the tree itself." Penelope's eyes filled with tears. Only one man in the world knew that secret, only her husband. And at last, after 20 years, Penelope ran to him. And Odysseus, king, warrior, survivor, held her as if he might never let go again. Dawn came, but peace did not arrive so easily. Families of the suitors demanded revenge. Ithaca trembled on the edge of civil war. Odysseus went to see his father, Laertes, old, grieving, living in sorrow. And when Laertes recognized his son, the last wound of Ithaca finally began to close. The angry men gathered, weapons rose, and Odysseus prepared to fight again, not for glory, but to protect what he had finally reclaimed. Then Athena appeared. Her voice cut through the rage like thunder, and by the will of Zeus, the fighting stopped. The bloodshed ended. Peace was commanded, and Ithaca, at last, could breathe. Odysseus had returned. Not unchanged, not unscarred, but still unbroken. He had lost ships, lost friends, lost years that could never be recovered. But he had found his home, He had found his wife. He had found his son. And after all the monsters, all the storms, all the trials beyond imagination, the greatest victory was this: a man standing in his own land again, and finally, at peace.